Welcome in to another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of the Tight Pants Society.
No fucking play is that a gimme, right?
Oh, a championship edition of Gas, ladies and gentlemen. We've got us a Super Bowl set. It'd be Super Bowl 59. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. And, oh, my goodness gracious, what a weekend of football. And you know what, Jay? I'm going to start with this. A lot of people say that the divisional round is the best weekend of football in the NFL. No, I think the championship games are. And I know that we can always get into that. Sometimes they're competitive, sometimes they're not. I mean, the divisional rounds to me aren't that competitive. I don't know. I just feel like to kind of start today's edition of Gas, I want to push back on the whole, the divisional round weekend is the best weekend in football. That was pretty good what we saw this past weekend.
I agree. And the wild card weekend, which I actually like more than the divisional round weekend, is my favorite. But yes, there are trophies in the building on Sunday and punching a ticket to get to a Super Bowl. We know very well as Patriots fans, no one remembers who loses the Super Bowl. But punching your ticket to get there, getting these 2 weeks is very special. You heard Tom Brady talk about it on the broadcast, just how special it is for everybody in your football life, family, friends, to enjoy that with you. So I'm with you. Championship Sunday, greater than divisional Sunday for me.
Yeah, I'm and it's interesting because everybody sort of, you know, they have their picadillos, they have what they like, and you know, the wild card round's getting watered down a little bit, and hell, everything's expanded. I'm expecting the Royal Rumble to expand here at some point soon, for crying
Right?
out loud. We have a bigger NCAA tournament, we have a real college football tournament. I mean, when you think about it, everything is already expanded. So by God, I'm sure that the NFL will get us to 16 playoff teams soon enough, but brother, we have a lot to peel through, not only the New England Patriots and the coaching staff, but as we mentioned, the Super Bowl is set, and it's going to be Philly and Kansas City, Super Bowl 59. Philly rolled Washington 55-23. And what can we say about Saquon Barkley that hasn't already been said, Jay?
Well, it's just unbelievable. And I know that we're going to get to the Super Bowl, and it's a rematch from a couple of years ago, but unless I'm mistaken, Saquon Barkley was not walking through that door for the Philadelphia Eagles when these two teams played a couple of years ago. But it really is just unbelievable. He had a quote, I don't remember specifically, but talking about, yeah, we are going to be that team that's going to win football games running it down your throat. 229 yards rushing, 7 rushing touchdowns for the team. I don't mean 229 for Saquon, for the whole team. And I know we're going to talk about the AFC, but Josh Allen can't run a sneak like Jalen Hurts. Nobody runs that assisted quarterback sneak like the Philadelphia Eagles. But I will say, I said this on the huddle yesterday on oddchark.com. If I hear the term brotherly shove one more time, I felt like I was watching like the Nickelodeon slime channel, listening to brotherly shove.
It is, it's annoying, but it's amazing how everybody knows that it's coming and yet they can't stop it. Now in the AFC game, Chris Jones was a part of stopping one of those Josh Allen runs, but I know we're going to get to it. And I know that the Saquon Barkley and the MVP stuff, but I love the Philadelphia Eagles for the reason you just said, Jason Anik, and that is, in an era of tight pants and quarterbacks and wide receivers and, let's go out there and daintily play the game because we want to whiz the ball around all over the place. It's nice that somebody stands up and knocks your dick in the dirt. That's we did a drill called D in the dirt when I was an offensive lineman, where you learn to hit and then you're kind of extending your hips through the block, right? My old offensive line coach would be like, I'm going to tell who the virgins are just with this drill. And they were called D in the dirt. And you could, honest to God, you could tell the people who have never thrusted their hips into anything. I say that jokingly, but Philadelphia is all in on it. And in an era where everybody thinks you have to have the big wide receiver, not that Philadelphia doesn't, by the way. In fact, they probably got 2 of them that are pretty good and a tight end that's underrated, but nevertheless, I love it that there's still a team, Jay, that is out there that just wants to punch you right in the mouth and run it down your throat. tell you they're doing it and then go doing it. That's badass.
Oh, and with Vic Fangio's unit backing you up, we've talked a lot on this program about the wide receiver market correction and how we don't necessarily think wide receivers going to get 25, 30, 40 million a year. But it wasn't necessarily in the context of the running backs. And I think Dalvin Cook, who's James Cook's brother or cousin, pushed out a tweet, 20 million a year for James Cook, right? Now, you can be sure Philadelphia is glad they paid Saquon, but really just unbelievable to think. And if Philadelphia does realize this championship and does beat Kansas City and get in the way of that three-peat with rushing and defense like this, be super impressive.
Oh, it'd be fantastic. I know that we're going to get there, but right now I'm leaning Philly. We got a long time to go, but right now I'm leaning Philly to block Kansas City from getting the three-peat, because I think there are some very particular matchups that are problematic for Kansas City and in the way that Philadelphia has built their team. But let's get to Kansas City, Jay, because they beat Buffalo once again, 32-29, wash, rinse, repeat. Here we go. Kansas City beats Buffalo, and everybody is going to pump up Josh Allen. Oh, what more can Josh Allen do? He's 0-4 against this guy. He's the only quarterback, I think, in head-to-head playoff battles who has not won a game yet against Pat Mahomes on the other side.
Well, and I think, excuse me, it was Rashee Rice who had a microphone in his face, and they said, asked him something about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and he's like, yeah, Patrick better than Josh. And it wasn't even joking around. It just kind of is what it is. But I do think coaching has a lot to do with it. I could go on and on about Andy Reid, right? He didn't win the championship as head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, but he built that organization and built that program so Doug Peterson could. What he's done in Kansas City is just unbelievable. And Buffalo Bills, I could do a whole program on how sorry I feel for their fans, and how I thought there were a lot of just bad offensive play calls and bad moments. We talked earlier about the quarterback sneak. If you can't run it like Philly, why are you getting up there so confident as if you can? And we talked about it on last week's show about running off guard, right? Yeah. How predictable is that going to be, right? If you're taking it straight up over center and you're doing sort of where it's the push, I'm not going to say what push. No. But if you're doing it like that, there's very little ground to gain. It's a straight shot. Whereas Josh Allen, if you're going to go off guard or bounce, how about going to the right? Or there's got to be some creativity there. Points and going for 2 points, right? You can cut it to 21-17, but early in the game, you go for 2. Then you get a touchdown early in the third quarter and go for 2 again, just chasing. So you end up 1 point instead of up 3 late in the game. It matters. I don't understand why we're chasing points early in games. I just think Buffalo, I'm not suggesting I believe Sean McDermott should lose his job, but I do believe they need different leadership if they're going to get over this hump.
They need a major change, and it's got to be on the table. Like if you're the general manager, or even if you're the owner, Terry Pagula, who's building a stadium. I know that his wife has been ill. If you're Pagula, by the way, you're also, I think, in your early 80s. So, the clock on earth is ticking like other owners have dealt with. Robert Kraft, Jerry Jones, see some of those guys that are older owners. And if you're Pagula, you have to ask yourself, what can I do to get this team over the hump? And is the mix wrong? Because you're right. At some point, when do you just look at the head coach and say, thank you, you've done an unbelievable job, but you can't break through the glass ceiling? And I got to shake it up for my fans to try to give them a little confidence that someone is in here that can do so.
Yeah, and Dalvin Cook, the older brother of James Cook, right? So James Cook, 13 carries, 85 yards, 6.5 per carry. That 4th down touchdown run, extending the football, one of the best big game plays I think I've ever seen in my life. Let the guy feed him a little bit, right? I think Buffalo had paths to victory in that game, despite whatever anyone wants to say about the officiating. And I just think they missed the boat. Joe Brady was an improvement over Dorsey, but I still think there's just room for improvement. And the Kincaid catch or whatever, I don't want to even talk about that play, but Josh Allen talked about opportunities for Kincaid during the season. He feels like maybe he let his guy down a little bit. I think he's right. Kincaid had a lot of hype after last season. So I think there's been a lot of sort of swing and misses out of this Buffalo team, and sort of getting a little bit comfortable being sort of the stepchild here.
They need a Saquon Barkley is what they need, friend. I mean, really, they need a compliment. Look at what Baltimore did for Lamar Jackson. They went and got Derrick Henry, and this year almost set a team rushing record. Well, James Cook to me is not a 350 carry a year back, and then you have to turn around and ask him for maybe 100 more carries in the postseason. Like, I know Derrick Henry is built for that. I've now seen that Saquon is built for that. And there were other teams that went out and got free agent running backs like Josh Jacobs. If Green Bay were here, to me, Jacobs is a guy who can get up to 400 carries and still be okay. I think Cook's one of those dudes who still needs to kind of get there, but they've also got to commit to it being more than just Josh Allen's going to rip open and show his Superman, underneath his shoulder pads. They've got to get more dynamic on offense.
Well, and if we flip it over to the Kansas City side, if you compare the wide receiver rooms, even though Patrick Mahomes may not need it, kind of like Tom Brady in the past, that's a good looking deep wide receiver room. Kareem Hunt from the same draft as Patrick Mahomes. It reminds me of the Patriots a little bit. Doesn't necessarily matter who's playing running back. I really hate to say it, but Kansas City, whether it's making the play in the big moment or Patrick Mahomes converting 6 first downs with his legs or them play, they are playing different now that's a postseason. And say what you want about the close games in the regular season, but gosh, they're built to win, and winning is paramount. And you don't always have to jump off the page every day, because if they find a way to win this 3rd straight Super Bowl, and the only loss this entire year when they tried to win was week 11 at Buffalo, I mean, hats off, blown away.
I think the other thing too is when you look at Buffalo, yes, there's the glass ceiling, but how are people going to improve around them? So now Buffalo, in a way, being number 2, has the league chasing them as well as Kansas City. And, you mentioned Kansas City, and you and I lived this as Patriot fans, right? They weren't the best version of themselves, but they were good enough to be able to win. And how many times did they played a Super Bowl without Gronk, for God's sake.
Yes, great point.
Like that kind of stuff, but still found a way to get there, found a way to be competitive, and at times won those games. That's Kansas City. They're not the best version of what they've ever been, but their version right now is still really good to go win a championship. And again, you and I have lived through it. And speaking of living through it, brother, the New England Patriots have completely shaken up their organization in a very big way. Mike Vrabel is now the head coach. We have coordinators. And I know you and I co-sign 100% on Josh McDaniels coming back. I know he can nurture and groom a quarterback. The new defensive coordinator is Terrell Williams. But Jay, to me, it's really about the staff that Vrabel is putting together. And in going through this process and watching it last year with Gerard Mayo, where he was bumbling, stumbling around, and 11 people said no to being the OC before Alex Van Pelt walked through the door. What a difference to have a vested adult NFL veteran head coach who knows people outside of the circle, not connected to Merrill Lynch or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. And none of this is Gerard Mayo's fault. I genuinely feel for the guy. But Mike Vrabel is the godfather, and it's the mafia.
Whoa. Oh, it is Gerard Mayo's fault, the staff that he hired. Mike Vrabel is attracting the people that, A, he wants, but also, B, he has depth of knowledge in these people. Look at all the people where it's coming from, bro.
But you cut me off because of what I said about Mayo. Let me say what I'm going to say about Vrabel. My point is I'm not putting it on Mayo being coddled in the Patriots organization for not having a team underneath him, right? Vrabel never stuck around with Belichick or wanting to be part of that coaching tree because he's his own man. And when I call him the godfather and I talk about the mafia, right? Doug Marrone coming in to coach the offensive line, the guy TB, Thomas Brown from Chicago coming in. This whole staff. You think Belichick wouldn't like hanging around with all these football guys? Doug Marrone, 2-time head football coach in this league coming in to coach the offensive line. That is going to be a scary place for the players. Good luck, Mike Vrabel. I am so fired up at what's happening in New England. Drake May is going to be so set up for success. I think they're going to take a big jump.
I did preemptively jump you because Gerard Mayo had zero ability to attract any of these people. And in fact, what he did on defense was just say, hey, all my buddies, now I'm going to elevate you guys. Whereas with Mike Vrabel, there's a little bit of the old sort of thread with guys like McDaniels, and Brian Belichick might end up hanging around. But there's also so much new blood in the building. And when you look at Thomas Brown, now, Jay, they haven't announced it yet, but apparently Thomas Brown is going to be the tight ends coach, and I guess they're going to put the label on him as passing game coordinator. Now, I feel like that's one of those things to kind of, okay, we're kind of making you a half-ass coordinator to sort of draw you here. But Thomas Brown's only, 36, 37 years old. He gets to sit under Josh McDaniels a little bit and learn. And here, Jay, is what I love about what Vrabel has done. If they get plucked, meaning if McDaniels gets, as crazy as it sounds, another crack at a head coaching gig, now he's got the guy on staff that they're grooming. I don't know anything about this guy, Tyrell Williams, but I know this. They went and got a guy from Florida A&M who was a college coordinator to come in and be the linebackers coach. I find that relevant because, again, same thing. If they ride high and in 3 years the Patriots are the bee's knees once again, let's say, and they start to pluck these people, Vrabel has layered his staff because he can attract the right kind of people. And I'm with you. The level of excitement I have, country club bullshit of all of them. And I know I said I wasn't going to swear today, but when I went to camp and saw people walking around and then you hear players saying they're making it up. Oh, no. Those days are done now. You're going to walk in the building and there will be a clear direction led by a real adult who's not in his own feelings.
Yeah, and I haven't cursed today, even though you're firing me up thinking I want to talk about Gerard Mayo. But I do know about Tyrell Williams. He was with Vrabel in Tennessee for 5 years, coached the defensive line with Detroit last year, has a great relationship with Aiden Hutchinson. I just think the staff, I don't want to start talking superlatives, but this staff my mind is effectively blown at the depth of this staff. And you can be sure they're paying these guys money, making it worth their while. But a lot of these guys were in good situations coming over. And forgive me, I don't know the name. Cody will drop it in the chat, but even that guy managed the clock that I think they got from the Rams right? I mean, I can't get enough of this. And I think that the roster, it's going to be very fascinating to see what they do with this roster because everything other than the roster is starting to really take shape, but that roster is still dreadful.
Well, the roster has only one place to go but up. And think of this. If I said to you, it's Alex Van Pelt with these wide receivers, right? And I look at the wide receiver group, and if Kendrick Bourne is going to come back, and you got Jalen Polk there who's a holdover, and Javon Baker, you go out and get the right kind of veteran. I know there's some delusions of grandeur about A.J. Brown and stuff like that, and maybe they do go get a real true number one wide receiver, but automatically I have to think that things are going to be better with some of the existing talent that they have because of the coordinator that is there. I mean, you still have Hunter Henry at tight end. You don't have a lot, but you have some pieces to at least start with to figure out how to build around from there. And I expect Kendrick Bourne to have a big resurgence once again. Coming off knee injury, was dinged up. We know the emotion is that he's played for Josh McDaniels. So he's a guy who's going to know how to reintegrate.
And he's also the leader in the locker room, in a locker room that I think lacks leadership. I think he's developed into a little bit of a leadership. I like some of Bourne's quotes in the past about wanting to be part of I think he was saying, of not being bad anymore. He wanted to be part of the turnaround. And I do believe there'll be a turnaround. Let me ask you quickly off the top about T. Higgins. Mm-hmm. Do you see the Bengals keeping him and Jamar Chase, or do you see T. Higgins somewhere else next year, regardless if that's Patriots or not?
Yeah, I think if I'm Cincinnati, I probably franchise T. Higgins for a year, try to keep him for one more, and sort of repurpose the position. They probably need to draft somebody. And if you want to keep Joe Burrow happy, that might be the easiest way to do so in the short term, is to at least give him one more year with T. Higgins while you get somebody else ready. Yeah. At least that's the way I would handle it. And are you among the Patriot fans where you're horny for T. Higgins to come to New England, or is it just, I don't care the name, just go get me somebody that profiles as a number one?
Well, I'm glad you asked the question, and I don't really know, which is why I asked you about T. Higgins. But what I will say is, when you trade away a selection and that selection becomes Ladd McConkey in last year's draft for the Los Angeles Chargers, who does seem to fit, could fit nicely in New England. I'm really more concerned with their ability to find wide receiver talent in the draft. There's a lot of depth at certain positions. I think there's some depth on the lines in this draft. So their ability to draft a receiver, I would say, in addition to whoever comes in free agency, go get a guy that can really help you in the draft. Is that so hard to ask?
No, it isn't. And I'll say this, that I have a sneaking suspicion that Jonathan Kraft wants him a big wide receiver. And I'll leave it at that. Because if he is really pushing that, then you bet your bippy that somebody is going to find a way to go get one to make JK happy. Maybe it could be at the top of the draft, Jay, because the Patriots are sitting there at number 4. But what in the bloody blue hell is going on right now with the odds around this draft? So just checked it on DraftKings. Draft order hasn't changed. Nobody's made any trades or anything like that, folks. But it's Cam Ward plus 120, Travis Hunter plus 175, Abdul Carter plus 265, and now Shadir Sanders is all the way down to plus 600. The word is getting out on these quarterbacks, but also people are really starting to feel Abdul Carter. And Jay, for you and I who want Travis Hunter to land with the New England Patriots, this could be just what the doctor ordered. All this hype around Abdul Carter.
That's a good point. But all this movement does make me feel a little less confidence in our ability as Patriots fans to get a guy like Travis Hunter, because to me, it is tough to find a quarterback in this league. And I don't know how much love there is for Shedeur Sanders in terms of being able to help your football team maybe say next year as a starter in the NFL. You talked about Cam Ward being more ready. I bet on Cam Ward minus 125 to be the number one overall pick because, that was a few months, maybe 6 weeks ago, but that had more to do with I heard from a lot of people that Sanders was not going to be that guy. So to me, I think the evaluation of both of these guys, but particularly Cam Ward, will determine a lot of this. But this movement to me doesn't necessarily make me think the Patriots at 4 are still going to find their way to Travis Hunter. You know, I think Chad Brinker, the president of football operations for Tennessee, moved this line. He said, we won't pass on a generational talent with the first pick in the NFL draft. Whether you think Cam Ward's that generational talent, I think he was talking about Travis Hunter. Not going to surprise me if Hunter goes 1 overall to Tennessee.
Well, I did I did a show with somebody who covers the Tennessee Titans on the ESPN radio. And that guy told me that this is before Rand Carthon got fired, said, boy, the Titans really like Abdul Carter. And that would honestly be the perfect scenario because Tennessee takes the D end. Then you got Cleveland. Then you have the Giants. They're going to be looking quarterback. Hunter could literally fall into the lap of the Patriots. But Jay, my worry would be little Elliott Wolf would then say, ooh, the best player in the draft or on a lot of draft boards, Travis Hunter, is right there at number 4. Instead of taking him, let's trade out and get a bumper crop of picks. That would make me throw up in my mouth if they did that.
I hear you. As of January 28th, I think if the Giants are in that number 3 slot, I'm not so sure they take Shedeur Sanders. In my opinion, as of today, I think they would pull the trigger on Travis Hunter and not necessarily commit. You know, you maybe swung and missed with Daniel Jones, even though I like Daniel Jones. Dan Orlovsky talked about them needing to fix the offensive line. I agree with that, no matter who is behind you in quarterback. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Giants take Travis Hunter. But I will say, Gresh, let's say it goes Carter, Ward, Hunter, and you're sitting there at 4 for New England. I do believe moving out of that slot and someone coming up to draft Deion's kid might make a little bit of sense.
It would, depending on how far you slide down. And this is where the intel from the other organizations matter, right? One thing that Scott Pioli, in lots of conversations that I had with him over the years, he said, I have to have not only control of my board, but I have to know what other teams are doing, or at least where they could go. Because a lot of teams at the top of the draft are bad, where they could go Will Campbell or Travis Hunter or whatever. But really, that's where your scouts start to talk. You try to get that advanced sort of intel before the draft to know that if you do want Will Campbell, that you would be safe trading down to, say, 7 or whatever, 6 or 7 with either the Jets or the Raiders. Trade down, get an extra pick, but still get your guy at the same time. There's the balance. Here's the other thing real quick to throw in here, Jay. The Jackson Dart rumor mill is churning pretty big. And I think it was Cody who brought this to us last week in the chat there about Jackson Dart maybe rising up boards. Apparently there are rumors circling around scouting circles that the Giants love Jackson Dart. Now that would be a real game changer, I think, in this draft, because Tennessee, Cleveland, the Giants, if you're now talking another quarterback got in there instead of Sanders, and it's going to be that Sanders is going to fall. Either way, I don't care. I think the Patriots can get back into the first round and grab themselves a tackle. And oh, by the way, they do have Mike Onwenu, who can play right tackle. So if you build it right, you only need one in the draft.
And we also don't know today all there is to know about Jackson Dart, right? Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid went and traded up and went back and got Patrick Mahomes. How does that look 7-8 years later, or whatever it is? So there is, and look, this last year's draft, right? Bo Nix. I'd love to know what extent Sean Payton would have gone to get Bo Nix, right? I think all these guys may be good. JJ McCarthy, Penix Jr., all of them may be good. All of them.
Well, and let's, it'll be interesting to see how all of that kind of fleshes out. I'm sure there'll be some more coaching changes next year around maybe some of those guys. Not New England. We know that New England is going to be locked in and ready to go, but that Atlanta situation might be a little tenuous. You have another 8-9 record and miss the playoffs or something like that, and they'll be wishing they had hired Bill B. Hoodsworth. By the way, you can get all of our content everywhere at Boston Anik. You can also see Jay on Odd Sharks as well, not only in the huddle, but also Anik versus Anik. Only a couple more weeks of that as we get ready to head into Super Bowl 59. You can get me on YouTube and everywhere at The Real Gresh, Gresh. And of course, we have you here each and every Tuesday at 11 a.m. for your latest edition of Gas. And, Jay, speaking of these coaches now, right? And you and I are giddy at the way Mike Vrabel is putting together this coaching staff in New England, adults that are really going to hold people accountable, not, highlight what some guy in Cubicle 7 had at Merrill Lynch in 2016 for his bleeping quote of the day. But nevertheless, the coaching hires have been very interesting in the NFL. And as you and I sit here right now, Jason, the New Orleans Saints do not have a head football coach. Apparently, my guy Darren Rizzi is still in the mix. Mike McCarthy is well thought of down there. But what, other than Mike Vrabel, because we've talked a lot about the Patriots, so to take Vrabel off the board here, what coaching hires stood out to you in a good or a bad way?
Duval. Is that what it was? I know, but it was right about just like that cringy. I'm embarrassed, Gresh, and I'm not afraid to admit that I'm wrong. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that on our phone call yesterday, I used the word, prior to the press conference, I'm taking this back, I used the word superstar to describe Liam Cohen. I no longer feel that way. Absolute yikes. I ingested the entire press conference. Boy, oh boy, Shad Khan, absolute yikes. If I were a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, I think I would be putting my stuff in a box and finding another team. I don't believe in the ownership. I thought I believed in Liam Cohen. I do think I believe in him as an offensive coordinator and a play caller. I don't know if I believe in him as a leader of men. He leaves town, then they get rid of Balky, and then he's coming back. What an absolute! Oh gosh! I saw a tweet out there. Forgive me, I didn't write it down. But where are the odds to bet on the Jaguars to go 0-17 after he dropped that Duval? And he was trying to sort of be right. And it's Duval County. Like, let's go. I'll do your press conference for you, Liam. But so that one was kind of bad for me, even though I do kind of like Liam Cohen. But when I saw him and the owner together, and you don't have a GM yet, that's yikes for me. Ben Johnson. He's getting a little cocky for me, but I still like the hire very much, and I believe in him. I think he's going to be a good football coach in this league. But I like him.
And Ben Johnson, didn't Ben Johnson come across a little dorky as well? When he had his dig at the Packers, he kind of like looked around like beforehand to be like, ooh, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? And then he went and did it and had that goofy little smirk. And look, I love Liam. He is a personal friend. I've known him since he was a kid. I called the UMass games. But I also said here last week that it might be a little early for him. And I hate that I'm about to say this, but his press conference gave me Mayo vibes.
You know what? You were so right and in the know in saying that he wasn't ready. And so someone like me who's heard him talk about offense and has gotten very excited listening to him talk X's and O's, I wouldn't have been able to see that maybe but I do believe getting up in front of people and getting up in front of the media and these press conferences is a big part of being a head football coach. You got to be able to talk to the room. You got to be able to talk to different people. You got to be able to relate to all 53. I do think he could maybe grow into this and with the right team around him, be successful. But juxtaposed to you, you've talked about the adults in the room so much, but it's the best way to put it in New England. It's hard not to be jumping out of our chairs excited. And I think Aaron Glenn, I'm warming on that hire in New York a little bit. What are your thoughts on that one?
You know what? Impressive presser to start. You know, he didn't ignore what kind of the Jets have been, which is fantastic. And I think that's where you start to kind of rebuild and say, okay, this is what we really are. Let's stop fooling ourselves. I do think Aaron Glenn is sort of stuck because he kind of needs Aaron Rodgers this year, but I'm sure he doesn't want to deal with him long term. And is there a way that the old player in Aaron Glenn can find a way to connect with Aaron Rodgers to at least give it 1 year while they try to find a quarterback and sort of set things up? I just think Aaron Glenn, a lot like Jacksonville, ownership not great, new GM in there. I love the passion that Aaron Glenn showed. That gives me hope that he's at least going to grab those guys' attention. And he was a former player, but boy, oh boy, that organization just looks like it is full of rubes.
Oh, and when you say passion, it's hard for me not to think about Liam Cohen. And I hate to say this, Gresh, because now I know he's like your friend, but you know, like the passion seemed forced. It seemed like he took the bag. You know what I mean? And I don't blame him for taking the bag. I hear maybe he got money close to Ben Johnson. Like, yeah, you're going to pay the guy north of $10 million a year. What is he? How many guaranteed millions of dollars are you getting for his young Filipino wife and children? That, you know,
No, if you're Liam, you take and I even said this, I don't think he's ready, but if he gets offered it, he'll take the job because you take it and you take the dough that comes with it. And I know that Tampa Bay was going to pay him. And look, on the business end, can we just be real about something? If you're playing high stakes, and that's what this wasn't like Jay, you and I walking into a local casino and playing at a $20 a roll craps table. We're talking about high roller room stuff, tens of millions of dollars. If Jason Light is mad at Liam Cohen forever, Liam Cohen can always send him a nice gift basket from Harry and David or something like that, because it'll be the tens of millions that Liam will be sitting on because he ended up getting this job. And even if he gets fired in a couple of years, yep, still going to get that money. That's why I don't feel bad for Mayo. I also don't feel bad for Jason Light or Tampa. That's business, because guess what? In the NFL, the F stands for you know what, because when they have the leverage, they will stick it to you. So I'm kind of happy for Liam from at least that end. Bro, Pete Carroll is back. Is this the football equivalent of Wayne Newton on the strip? Really?
That's hilarious. Well, and Cody brings up a good point in the chat about these head coaching opportunities. Even though you're the hot candidate, you don't necessarily always get that opportunity. So take the bag there. I actually think Pete Carroll is the right hire for this organization, the Las Vegas Raiders, at this particular time. Hate to say it, but a little bit of a bridge. He's not going to coach forever. You know, whether you're going to trade up to get your door or whatever, it's a little bit of a transition. You're in that division right now with Patrick Mahomes. You got Denver coming strong. You got the LA Chargers. It's a tough division. So for me, I think it's a bridge. I think he will establish a culture that needs to be established there. And I think that the Raiders will sort of, when they make their move in a few years, be in a much better position to do so, because there will be an adult in the room similar to New England.
That is exactly, I think, the psychology of this hire. Pete Carroll is not there to be the head football coach entirely. He is there to be the leader of culture. Because if I said to you, what do the Las Vegas Raiders kind of stand for? How do they profile? When you think of the old Raiders, you knew Al Davis, winning is the only thing, yada, yada, yada. And to me, that's Pete Carroll right now. Pete Carroll's got to try to build the new vision, honestly, the Tom Brady vision of the Las Vegas Raiders, because it is evident that old Tommy Boy Davis is kind of taking hands off and letting Tom Brady really have some say in the decision-making that's going on in that organization. And in all honesty, why not? He's done worse on his own. So, you know, bring in, and Richard Seymour's in there, by the way, another Hall of Famer with trained eyes and knows football.
Yeah, I would love to know if if Ben Johnson was close to considering the Raiders. I could have done some research there, or if they were close to considering him, because this hire does reek of Tom Brady in a lot of ways for me, and they're the real sort of disciplined and willingness, because you and I have talked about ageism in the NFL, and I've said that I would be an ageist. I wouldn't, but Belichick wouldn't be a guy I'd be jumping to hire in this. You think Pete Carroll's coming in demanding that he is the number one voice in the draft room? I doubt it.
Oh, I would totally agree. He'll have sway, he'll have influence, and I think that's something that organization is trying to figure out. And you see Cody pulled up there the whole Pete Carroll's 3 rules. I would just ask this, because I don't want to go through them, but what would have been the 3 rules for Antonio Pierce? Were there even 3 rules from Antonio Pierce? And that, again, it gets to the same thing with Gerard Mayo last year. It was like, what were the rules? Well, let's just push a minicamp back a week because the coaches aren't ready. Gee, I wonder why.
Gosh,
I know.
man,
I'm piling on.
No. I'm with you. It's just hard for me not to circle back to Mike Vrabel and some of the things that you've talked about, just about him. Doesn't it appear that he's worked his ass off in the last couple weeks, right? On the phones, wants it so desperately. And gosh, one of the things that Liam said that, gosh, I'm sure he wants back. He talked about being able to spend more time with his friends and family and in the community, be almost like the NFL gigs, less demanding than college. I know he didn't mean it in that way, and I do think maybe he can do this, but that owner, to me, gosh,
Yeah.
Right,
exactly. No, I'm with you. Again, Shad Khan fired the guy when asked in an interview 3 weeks ago, would you fire this guy? And he was like, well, yeah, if someone comes along and gives me a reason to. And then when it was, we're going to lose out on Liam Cohen. Like, again, I love Liam. And look, if he called me and said, I need help with these press conferences, I'd be down there lickety split. Let me roam around in those coaching pants. And
you're the guy. Tell him to watch gas. Just take a couple notes.
There you go. That's really all it is. And that thing was so cringy, and Liam, just know I'm here to help when it comes to that stuff. It ruined Mayo. Don't let it ruin you.
That's
anyway,
a great point.
We got to get to this, Jay, because this one, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So is Jerry Jones just insane, or is he completely like clueless to the outside world? Like, he's just one of those people who is completely unaware as to how he projects. He hired Brian Schottenheimer. Brian Schottenheimer. Jay Anik, you and I have been on Earth, in your instance, 46 years, and in mine, 50. Have we ever heard an owner, a team, an organization, or a fan base stand up and loudly and clearly say to the rest of the world and in front of God, oh my, I want Brian Schottenheimer to be my head coach? The answer would be nil.
And is it like Jason Garrett 2.0? Ben Johnson, I think, making like 13.5 million, right? Where was Schottenheimer making like 575K to be the head coach? Really?
Here's your 3% raise from being OC. You're now the head coach.
Hilarious, right? And that's the rub. It's like, hey Brian, like there ain't no chance any other team in this league giving you a head coach ever, right? And so, but. What I believe Dallas, looking up at the 2 teams in their division that just played for the NFC Championship, I think they have, and with Dak, who's a guy I don't really believe in at quarterback, gosh, being a Dallas Cowboys fan today is difficult. But Brian Schottenheimer, what are we? To me, it's almost like a Band-Aid, though. I don't hate it as much if it's not like a long-term thing. I don't think you would have liked to see them move on Dion.
Oh, no, I would have hated Dion too, but it would have been a very Jerry move. This is like the step down from at least Dion had some name recognition. It would have been a sexy hire. People would have gotten fake. There would have been a lot of, as my man Christian Fourier would say, FE, fake enthusiasm around Dion. And then they would have figured out pretty quick that the guy's illegitimate. He doesn't know what he's doing. But
it's like Schottenheimer's going to do it. Don't you keep McCarthy there?
You know what it is? Bro, you know what it is? This is brunette Jason Garrett. That's all he is. He's just Jason Garrett with a different hair color. Because it's the exact same thing. You're going to come in, as the great Bob Backlund would say, he's going to capitulate to everything Jerry wants to do. He's never going to turn around and say no. That's why I started. Like, this is about Jerry Jones. If I say this all the time, Jay, and I'll say it until the day I die or he dies. Jerry Jones is one of the most brilliant businessmen we've ever seen in the NFL and maybe on earth. But by God, he wants to die a football guy. Honestly, I really think Jerry Jones's net worth could go down to $1 million. But if he died a football guy and could put that championship ring right on his, ween to show everybody that, hey, I got that one, by gum, and there's mine. I think that guy would I think he would pick almost going broke to be known as a football guy than to have all his billions of dollars and just be a great businessman.
Totally agree. And, when you bring up the ween, hard not to think about the head football coach on the Patriots who said to Barstool Sports when asked, he would eliminate the digit, the important digit for a Super Bowl championship ring as a head coach. And I do believe him. I believe that sentiment to be true.
Yeah, I do too. By the way, speaking of whipping out your wiener, the Celtics lost to the Houston Rockets last night, and their old coach, old horny Ime Udoka, walking around playing the elephant game, all right, in the Celtics facility. Now he's gone to Houston to try to rebuild himself a little bit. I love it that you're still sick, and when I pop you, your tuberculosis is coming up.
Well, I was roughly sick last week, and I tweeted out the show. I said healthy, but I got this lingering cough. But unless I'm laughing, we're good. But you got me a couple times today.
Yeah,
so, try to be a little less funny moving forward.
Yeah, the elephant is always fun. I think that's what got Ime in trouble. However, the Celtics did blow a 10-plus point lead. They lose 114-112. Jay, they're just 32-15 on the year. And before we get into some of the numbers and where the betting markets are, I am not panicked yet. But there are some warning signs about blowing games at the end and some of the fourth quarter woes that definitely have my attention.
And I am not panicked yet either. And I'll say there are a couple reasons why. Number one, banner number 18 is hanging in the building. It's difficult to win multiple, difficult to win back-to-back or a few or become a dynasty or whatever it is. So they did raise a banner. I definitely believe it would be a huge disappointment if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum don't raise multiple. But this team is about as interested in the NBA regular season as I am, Gresh, if I'm being honest. I really believe in Joe Mazzulla. And I really believe that if he's himself thinking maybe I'm not pushing all the right buttons right now, I believe that he will be able to do so. But regardless of whether or not they can get out of their own way, and I think they'll be able to do so, I just believe this East is deep, especially at the top, right? Even a team like Milwaukee, right? Giannis, just 30 years old. Doc's doing some good things. I think the Knicks are better than I expected them to be, and I think they're going to be a tough out. Cleveland will be in that one slot. I don't think they're moving out, so you're going to have to beat whether it's New York and then Cleveland and go on the road. I still believe in the Celtics, and I cannot wait to watch them, but I think it's a very long season. There's been a lot of people that have said over the years, oh, the season should start Christmas. Gosh, it really should. And I'll tell you a funny story, right? Eric Nixick, MMA coach, went to the Clippers game. He's very close with Joe Mazzulla. So he brought a few people to the Clippers game. Nixick sends us images of them after the game grappling in the locker room. Joe Mazzulla is such an MMA head. He's got Nixick on the ground grappling after the win. He's got to go, right? So this guy, Joe Mazzulla, is a very unique cat, and I think they're going to be ready to go come summertime.
I tend to agree with you. The closing out stuff is what has got my attention, because those are the things that can steamroll on you, let's say. Now, look, we haven't seen the best version of the Celtics yet consistently. And there was the game against Dallas, a couple nights ago, where they had the full complement. And I know they didn't have Luke on the other side, but the Celtics blew doors because they had their real people out there. Let's also remember this, and I think people forget about this, Jay. When you look at Tatum and Brown, and Tatum, he's played 3 rounds a year almost, if not 4, pretty much every year the guy's been in the league. And I bring that up because throw not 1, but 2 Olympic games in there where you're just playing. Well,
he wasn't
basketball.
playing, right? He wasn't playing. Steve Kerr had him give him the proper rest there.
You're right. And that's where I'm waiting for the angry Jason Tatum to come out, because right now he just looks like tired Jason Tatum. And I looked this up from 2018 to now. Tatum has played in not only those 2 Olympics, but 113 playoff games.
Hmm.
So you're one full season, and you're almost halfway through another in terms of extra games played every year. I do think during the middle of that regular season, like where we're at right now, no one wants to go to Detroit when it's 12 degrees on a Wednesday and play hard. I get it and I understand it, but they better be able to flip the switch, and I trust that they will.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. And I think that's why some of this ho-hum stuff doesn't bother me. I've said ad nauseum, I think this team could suffer a major injury and is still deep enough to hoist one. I think they are the class of the NBA, not unlike the Philadelphia Eagles are the class of the NFL on offense and defense. I believe the Celtics are the class of the NBA. I believe they have the right coaching and leadership at every level. And this little lull during the year, I hate to say it, I don't mind it. Go peak at the right time. And if you need to trudge through some of this, they've been on the road a lot. It doesn't bother me that much.
Let's remember trade deadline as well. And even though there may not be the big pieces to trade, I think Brad Stevens has a couple of smaller ones that people maybe have their eyes on, and who knows what Brad Stevens could be up to. Now, in taking a look at the markets around the Celtics real quick, the C's are still, and you see Eastern Conference right there, they're still plus 110 to win the East. How about that, Jay? Look at the Cavs. The Cavs have a better record than the Celtics, yet they are plus 370. That's a gulf divide betting-wise between the Celtics and the Cavs right there.
I agree. I think I bet the Cavaliers when I was in Vegas 13-1 to win the championship a couple months back. I couldn't agree with you more. And I've said this over and over again. When Donovan Mitchell got injured in that series against Celtics, that series ended. That was a competitive series. I'm not so sure banner 18 is risen if Mitchell was in that series. I'm not trying to go crazy here, Gresh. I know injuries are part of the game, but this Cleveland Cavaliers team is legit. I think Cleveland or New York, I wouldn't consider it a huge upset if they were to find their way through Boston in the postseason. And I hate to say it, this Boston team, even though they hoisted that banner, they've had a lot of disappointing postseason results, this unit.
No question. And I think for Cleveland, they should be trying to get Jimmy Butler. They need a Robin to the Batman that is Donovan Mitchell. But you look at the Celtics, it's plus 250 to win the finals. OKC is plus 240. Look at everybody else after that, by the way. So that's either the whole Vegas and the smarts know, or the betting market is just flooded with OKC and Boston money in terms of winning the championship. And look, here's another one too. If you think the Atlantic Division, if you start to like, say, the New York Knicks, and think that either the Celtics or the Knicks can end up beating Cleveland and getting to the finals, you have a Atlantic Division to win the NBA Finals is plus 160 on DraftKings. So if you don't want to split your money and go Boston and New York, maybe, because those two teams are going to be really tough for Oklahoma City to match up against. And, if you think it's going to be the Thunder and the Seas, you can get an exact matchup. OKC to beat Boston plus 750, Boston to beat OKC plus 800. And with the way it's trending, it might be smart. If you're going to go exact result, you might want to lock those in sooner than later if you're smarting on OKC and Boston, because, I think those numbers are only going to shrink the closer we get to the playoffs.
That Atlantic Division number is really interesting. That's a really interesting way to look at this, especially if you believe in Cleveland more as a regular season team than a postseason team. And there are these teams in the NBA regular season from time to time that they are going to be able to be the best team in the regular season, but they won't look like themselves quite in the postseason. I will say in the Western Conference, even the Lakers at 45-1 to win the championship, right? If the Lakers find their way into that OKC bracket, and you got Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and maybe they've made a move to sort of bolster that front court, I think they could be really interesting. They've played some good basketball in stretches. They're still young, and the roster is, shoddy, but I think they're interesting come postseason.
They are. And, there's always one team in the playoffs that kind of rattles cages a little bit. Last year it was Indiana. This year we still have the trade deadline. And then I think we'll be able to kind of hone in the analysis even a little bit more. Now, if you'd like an award involving a Celtics player, 6th man of the year is looking pretty juicy. Peyton Pritchard is minus 155.
Pritch, please.
How about that? Pritch, please. And DeAndre Hunter is next in at plus 360. And then it's really all kind of long shots after that. So pretty much. And you know what's interesting, though, Jay? It cracks me up. that Peyton Pritchard is the guy identified as the sixth man, because he's really like the seventh or the eighth dude.
Hilarious.
When you look at the way the Celtics are constructed, they kind of have that like starting six almost that you're picking from every night. And then you're sort of throwing Pritch Please in there. And most improved player, our guy Cody was on this. Cade Cunningham is minus 115. You can probably get some pretty good action there. Norman Powell's plus 175. Everybody else is just big numbers. And the MVP market, as you see right there, is getting out of whack because of SGA in the year that he's having.
Dude, the sixth man market is almost comedy. It's like, did Peyton Pritchard become the favorite when he hit the half court shot in the finals to become the sixth man of the year, right? It's like literally after a week, it's like, oh, this guy's lighting it up off the bench. He's your sixth man of the year already. It's hilarious. But I will say, if you've ever watched the footage of his dribbling drills, there is no accident that Peyton Pritchard has gotten a nice contract and crafted a nice career for himself in this league, and it's been work. His handle, it's almost like Kyrie's. His handle is sick, and it's just unbelievable how he could most certainly be the starting point guard on another team in this league.
Oh, there's no question. You got to live with his bad defense, and some teams will. But to your point, but he's one of those guys that is eminently tradable at the deadline here. I don't want to give him up, but if it turns into, and I know your eyes just got big, but think of this. They extended Hauser, they extended Pritchard. You don't necessarily want to pull those two guys off the roster. But if you can get a higher level version of a Hauser or a better version of a Peyton Pritchard, given the way the roster's constructed right now, do you do something like that? And let's also remember, I know it is the dirty secret in sports, there's a new owner that could be coming in as well, and he might look at that big tax bill and say, nah, maybe you start to shave some now and make a smart trade so that when I take this thing over, I don't have to get rid of all the ancillary pieces.
Yeah, if we're having a conversation like that next summer, perhaps, but there is no chance this team is competing in the postseason, defending their rings without Peyton Pritchard as part of the roster. No chance.
Ooh, interesting. We'll see how the trade deadline goes. We need to have some fun with some stupid people. And you and I have not just taken like the final couple minutes of the show and either just ripped anybody or poked fun at people or anything like that. But I do notice that there are two things going on in the Twitterverse in particular, but out there on the social medias. And one of them is the rush for these people to try to verify how smart they are knowing football by pulling up the film and putting up a tweet and then breaking everything down and, trying to make it sound like this and look like that. And we're running the cloud coverage and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And it's just some 25-year-old who can't get a real job yet. And they're trying to find a way to break through. So I admire the hustle a little bit, unless you're someone like, is it Benjamin Solak? Is that what it is? Who apparently, and you can see this kid's about 13 years old. He apparently broke down a bunch of video on Josh Allen that was completely wrong. And I saw Solak put up it, and not Zolak. This isn't our guy, Scott Zolak.
Shout out Scotty Zoe.
Yeah, Zoe. He took a day off today. No, but seriously, this guy, Benjamin Solak or whatever, he breaks this whole thing down, and it's completely wrong. The video's wrong. The whole thing is wrong. What in the world are we doing here? I do some work at the Worldwide Leader. I know how meticulous they are about stuff like this is the kind of stuff where you'd be like, hey, dum-dum, you're besmirching our good name. Fix this or get the hell out of here. I mean, just
yeah. Well, one of the plays was
Fred
when I guess Spagnuolo had the free safety blitz, which was more like a corner blitz off the outside there. And I guess Shakir was in the flat for Josh Allen to have seen that, whatever it was. I saw the breakdown on film, but I want to say something to you that I don't hear anyone talking about in terms of that final play. Dalton Kincaid, I know, could he have caught the ball or whatever it is? But what I want to say is that Josh Allen is getting no credit for the ball he threw in that spot. This wasn't just some chuck. He saw Kincaid. He had some foresight to where he would be and threw, like a dime to put it on his hands. And so I'm not suggesting they would have won the game or whatever it is, right? I appreciate Cody's going to show the play, but I don't think Josh Allen's getting enough credit for, once again, you talk about Superman Josh Allen, but he really almost did it. He really almost did it.
And he had to turn into Superman here because they completely fold the offensive line. Like if this dopey kid had any idea what he was doing, look how the defensive end widened his rush to go out to the running back, right? Because Allen is going to end up rolling to the right, but the defensive end bowed out. So that way it created more space beside the tackle for the blitzer, but it also turned into two unabated. And you make a great point. Like, I always clown around on these dudes that have such great arm strength where they get bad mechanics. Sometimes see Drake May. He'll get that cleaned up, hopefully. But when you look at Josh Allen, he's running to his right. His eyes are still downfield, and it's one leg going backwards where he makes that throw. That's an unbelievable play.
Thank you. I agree with you. And I'm interested to see where it goes for Bills fans from here. And I say for Bills fans because what's going to change, right? What is going to make what is going to put them in a position to get past this team? You know, my brother called me yesterday and he said Sean McDermott was fired, and he was joking with me. Right?
But you believed it.
Well, I believed it, and I don't believe he deserves to be fired. But what is going to be able to take this team over the top? I felt like they were timid on the offensive play calling side of things. I mean, that's a pretty decent ball. Kincaid, and you know Kincaid's reaction right away. You knew he had an opportunity to catch a football. It's like some of those guys. It's the mental focus in that moment. Yeah, run it back one more time. I just want to see this ball that Josh Allen chose.
You know what? And there was a little twist there, but look at that. I mean, he is off the ground and throws it 40 yards to where he can almost catch it.
And the slow-mo's making it look more like a chuck. I mean, I do think there was an intended receiver there and an intention to throw it to number 86.
Yeah, I do think there was. There was also the intention to hopefully block it up. And to me, that's where the real money is on this play, is to how the offensive line couldn't get it done. And look, for this kid, look, you know, he's some pimply-faced 25-year-old is trying to make it or does stuff for ESPN and has got to justify whatever to his bosses and things like that. I saw the guy put on Twitter yesterday, not a good day to read your mentions. Well, check your work, dummy. I mean, I hate to be hard on the younger people in the business, but having done this for like 28 years, there are checks and balances. And this is where the internet does the whole getting you in trouble and things of that nature. But here's the other thing that's going on too, that is driving me nuts. Unnamed guy who puts in his Twitter bio, Pat's Insider, right? There's a dude out there who's like, I'm a teacher. I'm a 27-year-old teacher, but I'm a Patriots insider. You know, we have like more people out there who are like, oh, this guy had it first. Yeah, some genius, Jay, figured out that Doug Marrone is an offensive line coach. Holy Jesus. I mean, my God. And then it was, oh, he's likely to come here. D-Dong whatever NFL had it first. And you go to their thing and it's like, hi, I'm a 26-year-old who's got too much time on my hands. And I just want a bunch of credit for a bunch of stuff that people can put together or for retweeting and aggregating stuff. Good God almighty. Well, you couldn't even get a press pass. Shut the hell up.
And Gresh, all of your inside information, which is sometimes can be quite vast, you're not even allowed to say publicly. So that's a true insider, right? Where all your information is secret stuff that's still not out there.
Yeah, when Mayo walked in and told a certain person in the media, man, I'm in over my head. It's like, well, it's amazing. It took you until week 12 to verbalize that, buddy. Pretty amazing when you think about it. But nevertheless, I don't know. It just drives me nuts. And it's the whole, cry for recognition. Yeah, because just tens of thousands of Pats fans are going to run to follow some 26-year-old who's stocking shit at Stop and Shop and retweeting stuff. Like, please.
Right. Well, so I know that you're going to get us out of here soon, but in terms of Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels coming on as the offensive coordinator, right? We talk about Liam Cohen going to Jacksonville. So Baker Mayfield is now going to have his 8th offensive coordinator in his 8 seasons in the league. And I thought the point you brought up with Vrabel sort of rounding out the staff in case someone goes is a great one. But I believe Drake May is in such a great spot here with Josh McDaniels because I believe his time as head coach in this league really might be totally over now. right? I'm not sure there's anything he could do. And even, you're going to have to, if Drake May wins a Super Bowl, maybe Josh McDaniels gets another job. But for me, I don't think Drake May has any chance at 22 years old of experiencing anything like Baker Mayfield did from this point further. And that to me is enormous, no matter how good Josh may be. And my final thing I'll say about Josh McDaniels, regardless of his and what he did for Brady, to me, it's about the other way. It's what Brady did for him. He stood and watched the greatest quarterback of all time. I've said this on other programs for years. What did you learn from Tom, Josh, that you can impart upon this kid? I really believe that when it's all said and done, Drake May is going to help this organization get back to the top. And I love it.
Yeah, I think to the playoffs, yes. I don't know to the top. I am a little... I'm trying to not look at it through the purview of an old, okay? But I'm glad Drake May is getting all the vacationing in now. I hope it's only now. Get it out of the system and then get your ass back up here and get to work in terms of Josh McDaniels, learning this offense and letting him be the one to kind of teach you the way. Look, everybody's got to have fun. You got to decompress, all that kind of stuff. I get it. Technically, the new staff isn't even really in place yet. So I'm hoping the kid gets it out of his system, plan your wedding, all that kind of stuff, because Josh McDaniels is going to challenge him in a way that he's never been challenged before. And it's going to start up here even before it is with his arm or his footwork or anything like that. And I hope Drake May is ready for it. I am 75% confident that he is, but there's still that little bit of doubt in there that, oh man, can he deal with what's going to be thrown at him consistently at the NFL level, where someone's going to say, don't run out of the pocket. You stay in there and have to learn to play from there. That's where the evolution of the game has to happen this offseason for Drake May.
That's really good stuff there. And I'll say about Mac Jones, even though I might not believe in him ultimately as a quarterback in this league, he was certainly capable in his rookie season to mentally be ready to handle what Josh McDaniels threw his way. And I think your points are very well taken. I think we don't quite know about Drake May. He is younger and he's a big time athlete that can do a lot of different things. And I hope Josh can be creative enough as well.
Let's
put confident in that.
Hang on. I'll give you 2 words and you can go look up how the offense changed. Cam Newton. They almost went 500 with Cam Newton under center because Josh McDaniels basically turned it into the Philly offense in terms of running the ball and running with the quarterback. So I guess that's the best example I guess I can give of some of the creativity and how Josh McDaniels can adapt, because Cam wasn't great and we found out he couldn't throw, and they were still at least competitive by turning around and using the big guy's legs. And that will do it for another edition of Gas. Make sure you're following our guy Cody Merrow on Twitter. He's got all the great work he does with John and Jason and everybody at Cody_Merrow. You can get him at Boston Anik. You can get me at The Real Gresh. We're here each and every Tuesday, not only on YouTube, but on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere. So you can watch the latest edition of Gas. Next week, we're going to give you big-time Super Bowl bets. And in fact, quickly as we get out of here, I already made one. I have Saquon and the 2 quarterbacks for anytime touchdowns, because I think both Mahomes and Hurts are going to run one in, and you're guaranteed Saquon's getting one maybe first quarter.
Oh, and I saw good value on both quarterbacks. I think I saw Jalen at -105. Mahomes was 4 or 4.5 to 1 to 5 pay dirt. And Mahomes, 2 touchdowns last week. And we've talked a lot about quarterbacks rushing in the postseason. You protect them in the regular season, postseason. Both quarterbacks, Allen and Mahomes, each with 11 carries last week.
And one final thing. Thank you for not nailing me for gimmick infringement, because I buzzed the beard and everything and just went with the mustache a la you. But I like it that it slid under the radar and you didn't even bust my balls for not looking like Grizzly Adams.
Well, you know what? We need to get you an even higher definition camera, because it looked to me like a little goatee almost, because you and me got that white going here.
Oh, it's the white, but there's like nothing. There's nothing there. And I tried the 4K. I don't know. I'll try to do it again. I want to throw this thing out the window. But then again, I know you have had that rage at your camera as well. So
True. So your wife's name is Betsy, correct?
Yeah.
So I believe I'm going to say, Betsy, if Andrew could shave all of this around and everything but the straight mustache, then I could have something to really look at. So clean everything else up and keep that mustache growing for us. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say there actually is a Twitter account, bearded. I think it's like Gresh's Stash, if I'm not mistaken. You can go to Twitter, and Gresh's Stash is a real account. And there was one that I had from like a couple years ago where it was big and bushy, and oh yeah, it was somebody who used to listen to the old show, Taking Care of Me. I've had the REEL Gresh instead of REAL. Somebody threw that one out there. I've had like Gresh's Stash and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm at the real Gresh, because there's a ton of imposters out there, because, you know, people can't help but following and trying to make fun, even though I have a heart as cold as a banker.
Ha.
And that is it. Brother, we are out of here. Great fun today, man. Looks like the Patriots are finally on their way. Let's get the Celtics going in the right direction, and we will have all of the Super Bowl betting breakdown next week on Gas.